5 car manufacturers had the technology to make diesel cars genuinely clean. They possessed working systems that could scrub nitrogen oxide from exhaust far beyond what European law required. What nobody knew at the time was that BMW, Daimler, Volkswagen, Audi and Porsche held secret meetings for 5 years to agree they would never use that technology properly. And the European Commission just fined them €875 million for it. Nobody was paying attention to what happened inside those technical working groups back then. This was the golden age of clean diesel. German engineering was the global benchmark. Every major auto show in Geneva, Frankfurt and Paris featured gleaming diesel sedans marketed as the responsible choice for environmentally conscious drivers. Customers trusted that their Volkswagen Passat or BMW 5 Series or Mercedes E-Class came equipped with the best emissions technology money could buy. The brochures promised it, the advertisements sold it, regulators believed it, and across Europe millions of people bought diesel cars thinking they were doing the right thing for air quality. But the engineers who built those systems knew the truth was uglier than any marketing department would admit. Selective catalytic reduction. That is the system at the heart of this entire scandal. SCR technology injects a liquid called AdBlue into exhaust gases to neutralize nitrogen oxide, one of the most harmful pollutants diesel engines produce. The technology worked. It worked brilliantly when given enough fluid to function properly. Engineers inside all 5 companies calculated that a 19-liter AdBlue tank would provide enough capacity to clean emissions far beyond legal minimums. 19 liters would let the system scrub nitrogen oxide aggressively between refills, giving customers genuinely cleaner air coming out of their tailpipes. But that would cost more money per vehicle, take up more boot space, and create a competitive arms race between manufacturers to prove whose car polluted least. So they agreed on 8 liters. 8 liters? Less than half what their own engineers said was needed for the system to function at full capacity. They capped the effective range at 10,000 kilometers between refills, deliberately limiting the dosing rate so that emissions were reduced to legal minimums only. They had the technology to go further, they chose not to, together. But if you thought agreeing on tank sizes was the worst of it, keep watching. But here is where it gets embarrassing. They wrote it all down. Audi circulated an internal email that literally used the word secret in quotation marks. Hello everyone, here is the information on the secret meeting in Munich. They were not hiding in some underground bunker. They held over 60 formal working groups with rotating agendas. More than 1,000 meetings in the final 5 years alone, cycling between Stuttgart, Munich, Ingolstadt and Wolfsburg. They discussed everything from tank sizes to supplier choices to dosing software platforms. One key gathering took place at a spa town called Bad Kissingen, where minutes from the meeting document the exact moment they agreed on undersized tanks. Audi prepared an overview showing that 19 liters was the minimum needed for effective cleaning, presented it to the group, and then everyone signed off on 8. A separate Audi memo from May 2014 warned urgently against any company breaking ranks. Audi urgently warned against any company going it alone. They call this avoiding an arms race of tank sizes, which we should continue to avoid. Competing to be less clean, that was the official position. And this is the part where things stop being funny, because these were not rogue engineers acting alone. The decision to use smaller tanks was approved at board level. Senior executives from all 5 companies signed off on limiting their own products. And somehow, they convinced themselves nobody would ever notice. But the Circle of 5 had a problem they did not anticipate. In July 2014, a BMW compliance officer, conducting a routine internal audit, stumbled onto detailed minutes and email exchanges from these technical meetings. The findings were serious enough to escalate immediately. They landed on the desk of BMW General Counsel Dr. Thomas Wittig. And according to an internal BMW memo, given the potential exposure and the seriousness of the findings, immediate notification to the European Commission is required. Within days, BMW contacted Brussels. They filed for leniency. That single audit triggered everything that came next. But the race to confess first was only beginning. But Daimler moved faster. Once they realized BMW had gone to the Commission, Daimler scrambled to file their own leniency application. In European antitrust law, the first company to confess receives full immunity from fines. Full immunity. Zero penalty. Daimler made it to the front of the queue ahead of BMW. They provided a complete confession and all supporting evidence. BMW ended up paying €372 million. Volkswagen Group, covering VW, Audi and Porsche, received a 45% leniency reduction but still got hit with €502 million. And Daimler, who attended every meeting, agreed to every limitation, built the same crippled systems into their Mercedes lineup, walked away owing 0. You genuinely cannot make this up. If you are enjoying watching German engineering's finest dig their own grave with an 8-liter tank and a group email, hit subscribe. I cover a new corporate disaster every week, and the next one involves a company that got caught doing something even dumber. But the confession did not spare anyone from what came next. By October 2017, European Commission investigators arrived unannounced at BMW headquarters in Munich, Daimler in Stuttgart, Volkswagen in Wolfsburg, and Audi in Ingolstadt. Simultaneous dawn raids across 4 cities. Teams of forensic IT specialists carrying portable imaging stations equipped with tableau, write blockers and encrypted storage drives walked into server rooms and began copying everything. They used Nuix forensic software to run keyword searches on hard drives in real time, generating SHA-256 hash values to guarantee evidence integrity. They sealed offices with red tape bearing official commission stamps. They blocked access to filing cabinets. The inspectors brought their own laptops because touching company equipment would compromise the chain of custody. These raids lasted days. The companies confirmed cooperation and said nothing else to the press, but the investigators already had what they needed. But the Commission was building something unprecedented. This was the first cartel case in European history based solely on restricting technical development. Not price fixing, not market sharing, not customer allocation. Article 101 of the EU Treaty explicitly prohibits limitations of technical development as a form of cartel behavior. But no one had ever been prosecuted under that specific provision before. Brussels was about to prove it applied to companies that agreed to pollute more than they needed to, by mutual consent. But here is the detail that makes this case historically absurd. While BMW, Daimler and Volkswagen were running this emissions technology cartel from June 25, 2009 to October 1, 2014, Volkswagen was simultaneously operating the Dieselgate defeat device fraud. Different mechanism, same company, overlapping years. The cartel limited how well legal technology worked. Dieselgate used illegal software to cheat emissions tests entirely. VW was sabotaging clean air from 2 angles at the same time and genuinely believed neither scheme would surface. The Commission adopted its statement of objections in April 2019. 2 years of negotiations followed before the case switched to settlement procedure in February 2021. On July 8, 2021, Executive Vice President Margrethe Vestager stood at the podium in Brussels and delivered the verdict. 875 million euros. Her exact words were damning. The 5 car manufacturers possessed the technology to reduce harmful emissions beyond what was legally required, but they avoided competing on using this technology's full potential to clean better than what is required by law. The Commission applied a 20% reduction to the base fine for all parties because this was a novel legal theory, the first time technical development restriction alone had been prosecuted as a cartel. Even with that discount, Volkswagen Group owed $500 million. But the fines were not even the real punishment. The real damage was what this case proved in public view. Millions of diesel cars sold across Europe, including the Volkswagen Golf, Audi A4, A6, Porsche Cayenne, BMW 3 Series, 5 Series, X3, X5, Mercedes C-Class, E-Class, GLC, GLE and BlueTech models all carried emission systems deliberately handicapped by a boardroom agreement. Every driver who paid a premium for clean diesel technology bought a compromise dressed up as innovation. Consumers were denied the chance to buy cars that polluted less. The Commission said so explicitly. The case triggered regulatory reform across the continent. The Euro 7 regulation adopted in 2024 grants the Commission new powers to conduct spot checks on manufacturers, levy fines directly, and peer review. How national authorities enforce emissions rules. It takes effect November 2026 for new vehicle types. Consumer litigation continues in Germany and the United Kingdom, with Volkswagen paying 620 million euros in class action settlements and 850,000 claimants pursuing cases in British courts. 875 million euros. Millions of cars running at half their cleaning potential. 5 years of meetings, 60 working groups, and 1 group email with the word secret in quotation marks. Daimler walked away free because they picked up the phone first. The next company I'm covering paid nearly €1 billion because their executives thought paying a competitor billions to never switch suppliers was a perfectly reasonable business strategy. That did not go well for them either.